Hi, I'm Mr. McConley, and this is Burnock's Westerlo Intro to Agriculture class. Today we're going to be talking about seeds and growing seeds, and we have Farmer Andrew here that's going to help us out, walk us through the process. So we're going to look at different seed packets. We're going to talk about germination. We're going to talk about days to harvest. We're going to plant some seeds, and along the way he's going to give some of his knowledge and advice and share that with you. So I'll take the camera now.
So recently here I just went out and purchased a bunch of seeds, planning for the coming year. So one of the main things I look at when I'm buying seeds is the harvest, which is shown here, and also germination, which this one might not have it. This one did, I think. Germination. So
I see 8 to 10
8 to 10 days.
8 to 10 days. There
So that's how long it takes to sprout in the soil. So a lot of times it can take longer than that, because I've tried to plant too early when the ground is still cold, and it'll take probably twice that, and probably half your seeds will rot. So you gotta look at what temperature and what time of year they recommend you plant.
So about germination, one of the main things that's going to make a seed germinate is the change in the soil temperature and then the moisture that's being added, correct?
Yes, so you want the soil to be around 65 degrees for most seeds, but things like kale and lettuce will put up with colder than that. You can probably start planting them within the next few weeks outside, as long as you avoid some snow and stuff like that.
All right. So let's switch gears from the actual germination, how long it takes the seed to get growing, and let's look at some of the days to harvest. So what's a real short harvest window, we'll say?
So this packet of seeds, it's a mixed lettuce, so fancy lettuce, and it takes 10 to 14 days for the seedlings to emerge and 20 to 35 days to harvest.
So within a month.
Yes, so a lot of times I like to plant those indoors, like during the winter, and you can just harvest lettuce indoors. But there's no reason. So another topic we're going to talk about in this video is planting stuff indoors. And I don't really have a reason to start lettuce indoors like that, because you can just plant it outside, and before you know it, it'll be ready for harvest.
What's a long harvest window that you have here?
So I have this giant pumpkin here. They can grow up to 800 pounds, and they take 125 days to harvest.
Okay. So
with a lot of things like that, like gourds, a few different types of pumpkins, like these, any of these, I can just go through and look at how many days to harvest. So 125. This was 91 to 98. And what you want to do with things like pumpkins, there's a certain time of year you want those to be ready. So
obviously we'd want those ready at Halloween, I would say.
Right. So you want to plant them at different times depending on how long they take to grow, and because you want your harvest to be at Halloween, because I try to sell them, so they don't do me any good after that date other than my own purposes. So the other thing you have to be careful with pumpkins is if I started these big pumpkins right here inside, they would be so big by the time it was time to plant them, I'd fill the whole basement with plants.
Yeah, so let me scan over and we'll take a look at what we got going on here. So what we have is a little tripod setup. Let me back up. Better view here. A little tripod with a couple lights. And Farmer Andrew's in the process of planting some things that he wants to get a jump start on. Starting in the basement here so we can transfer them outside. So why don't we go ahead and show us how you do some of your planting here.
So this is a potting mix. It doesn't really make too much difference what you use, but I'm just going to pour this in here. You want to, if your soil is really dry and like super dry and like your plants aren't going to grow in it. So what you have to do is add water and then remix it, because it'll actually repel the water if you try to plant when it's really dry. So you got to mix your soil up. This stuff is already fairly moist. I'll water after I plant the seeds, most likely. So I fill these right up to the top, so when I water them, they don't go down too far. Just do that.
Because as you add the water, the soil will
I'll leave
compress
that-
a little bit.
That there in case I need some for once I water.
Okay. All right, we're going to move up here.
Just gonna give it a little bit of water to settle it down. So today we're planting some pumpkins. It's still a little bit early to be planting.
I thought we were planting tomatoes.
Yes,
Oh,
tomatoes,
okay.
I guess. It's still a little bit early to be planting tomatoes, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I want to see if I can do it, get a head start. But most of the time, this time of year, you're probably just planting peppers, probably the main thing, because they take a long time to germinate. So on the package it says I'm going to plant them how deep?
So we're looking for depth. Each seed has a depth, an optimal depth. And in this case, he's trying to figure out the optimal depth on these particular tomatoes.
It just says a fine layer of
Okay, so not very deep on these.
yeah, I'd go like 1/4 inch probably.
All right.
I usually do.
So let's go ahead and plant some.
So I just have this little tool and it makes it a lot easier to make little divots. I want to break up any chunks so you could prevent the roots from growing once they get bigger. These seeds are really tiny.
All right, let me put your hand in under the light there and I can... Oh yeah, little seeds.
So I'm just going to put one in each.
I'm going to move to the other side so I have a better view since you're right-handed.
I don't worry about it too much. I dropped 2 in there. Oops. Oh well. I don't worry about too much putting more than one because you can always pull them out and seeds are pretty cheap. But you ultimately just want one in each. And I always make sure to have more seeds than I need because you'll see some sprout, some won't, because they don't all germinate. So
what's the typical success ratio?
most seeds is probably around 80-85%.
Okay. And I know you were mentioning before we started the video that seeds do have a shelf life, so if you don't use them all and you keep them for the next year, they might be all right, but there comes a point after maybe a couple years that those seeds don't even want to germinate. Is that true?
Yeah, so usually it's 2 years. A lot of the seed companies will say it on their package.
And now you're being careful not to...
I don't want these too deep.
Okay.
Then they'll rot before they sprout. They'll have too much. They'll be down too far and it won't make it up in time, the sprout.
Now, are you putting any compression or down pressure on that, or are you just basically just covering lightly?
So if I was planting these in the garden, I would put some down pressure. But since it's in these little cells, I don't, because I can do a little bit just to keep the dirt from falling out. But the water kind of compresses this type of soil, this potting mix. I think I got them all.
All right, good.
And then the last thing I like to do is give them a nice heavy water. And I use a spray bottle because it doesn't make holes in the dirt. As if I was to just pour it, it would really compress the dirt.
Yeah, it would almost like bore a hole into the dirt
Right.
with the water. Now, how do you keep track for later so you don't get confused what you planted?
So I have a marker,
Okay.
and I'll just write on this package T-O-M.
All right.
And then I can remember what I got.
TOM being the
You can
tomato.
just barely see it, but it's good enough.
Can't see it that well on the camera, but it's a little clearer in person. So good. So now we should, in approximately, what was the germination time of these tomatoes?
I don't think it said, but I think it's probably 10 days, I would guess.
So in a couple weeks, we should see some sprouts, and eventually we'll have some nice tomato plants. So great. Thank you, Farmer Andrew. For today, this is Mr. McConley in BKW Intro to Agriculture class. We've been planting seeds. Catch you next time.